case you haven't figured it out. When I make these videos, most of the time, it's a spur of the moment when it's like, I'm doing this project, I might as well get it on video because it seems that that's what people want to see. And just like the dehydrating video I just did on the tomatoes, this is something I just now thought to go ahead and set the camcorder up and record myself making these raspberry turnovers. So that's what we're doing today. I am making raspberry turnovers for my husband. His birthday was 2 days ago, and typically I make him, it's tradition, I make him raspberry turnovers, and we were so busy I just did not have the time to get to it. And this is typically a 2-day process. I'm hoping I can get this done by tonight. We'll see how it works, because you need to chill the dough for a few hours, and I really want him to be able to take some of his lunch to work tomorrow, so I'm going to do the best I can. I think maybe I'll just stick the dough in the freezer. So anyway, these videos are script free. I'm sure you figured that out with all the stammering I do and stumbling over my words. I just go with the flow. But you know what? This is me. It's the real me. Take it as it is. And I hope you enjoy the video. I hope I have something to offer with this and with any of the other videos I posted. And thank you so much if you've subscribed recently. I've been totally blessed and surprised with the amount of subscribers I've received in just a matter of 3 days. It's been amazing. So anyway, let's get started on these turnovers. If you've seen my grape juice video, you will have seen my hot plates that are sitting out here. And if you haven't seen it, let me do a quick explanation as to why I've got these Nesco hot plates here. My range works perfectly fine. However, this is our backup to this. What this is, these burners in the summertime, I use them hooked up to a solar outlet because we get lots of solar power in the summer. So anything I cook on these is, I'm not using any public power for. So that's what I'm doing here. In this pan, I've dumped a jar of raspberries from last year. We got a lot of raspberries this year too, but I had these ones frozen in a pint jar from last year, and I honestly can't tell you if these ones were from my garden or the neighbor's, because the neighbor also had a lot of raspberries and asked me to come get them, so I ended up with a lot of raspberries between mine and his. So anyway, it looks a little weird because all I did was I threw in some tapioca starch and a little bit of coconut sugar, a little bit of organic cane sugar. And I'm going to taste it. Again, I just throw stuff together. I don't really measure it. I would say about a 1/4 cup of tapioca starch to the pint of raspberries. And maybe the sugar might be, half cup at the very most. I'll taste it and see. I'm trying to keep things as low sugar as possible. And that even kind of sounds like a lot for a pint, but we'll see. But anyway, you just want to stir that in there real good. I prefer to use tapioca starch rather than cornstarch because you cannot guarantee that, you know, anything, as most of you that would be following me probably know, anything that's made from corn, unless you have that verified non-GMO sticker on there, you cannot be certain it is GMO free. So I prefer to use tapioca starch or arrowroot powder. That's another one you can use to thicken. Now I'm going to turn the heat on. Now I've got that stirred in there. Oh, I'm going to turn it on here. And I'm going to let that cook for a while and get nice and thick. Now while that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and get started on my dough, which I actually should have done hours ago, but I was busy dehydrating, filling shampoo bottles for a friend who wanted to come buy some shampoo from me, because I do also make my own herbal shampoo out of my own organically grown herbs. And there was just been a lot going on. Oh, and I had a big thing of beans I had to go out and pick because I didn't get to them yesterday. And I still have to take care of those and get them put up. So anyway, I'll get started on the dough next. Alright, so today when I make my turnovers, this will be the first time I'm making them out of 100% home ground whole wheat flour. This is all organic. This is white wheat, whole white wheat flour that I grind here by hand with a hand crank mill, not an electric powered one. We've got the Country Living Gray Mill, and I love it. It's a way I can keep my arms in shape, and I was able to cut back on a lot of my exercises by doing that. So there's 1 cup and then another cup. Now the reason it's in a jar like this is what I do is I grind the flour when I have time during the week, and then I keep it in the freezer in these pint jars. Now you see at the top, this one says old, because this is the oldest one in there. I keep 3 jars in there at all times so I can keep cycling them through. And you want to use up, I mean, the best way to use wheat flour is to use it as soon as you grind it. But that's not, with everything that I do and as busy as I am, I just don't always have time to grind up the amount of flour I need right then. So I prefer to always keep some ground up. This is going to be about a teaspoon of salt. This is pink Himalayan salt, which I really like, but my very favorite is the Redmond real salt. But I have a lot of this, so I got to use this up. And when I say a lot, this is just a small, very small fraction of what I have. I have a lot of this pink salt stored up, but I also have a lot of the Redmond real salt, so I save that for direct salting things like popcorn and whatnot, and making my seasoning salt. So about a teaspoon of salt to 2 cups of flour. But yeah, I've been very happy with my Country Living Gray Mill, and I love the work it gives, the workout it gives my arms. And I just, I grind a little flour throughout the day as I can, and then at the end of the day I stick it in the freezer. So wait, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to need 2 full sticks. Now typically my favorite butter is Kerrygold butter, but I have a lot of this butter that I always try to find anything that says that at least it doesn't have 1 hormone added to it. So this is supposed to not have antibiotics and whatever. And I stocked up on a bunch of it, but then I found out that the Costco carries the Kerrygold butter for just an excellent price. And that's, as far as I know, now somebody can tell me in comments if there's another one out there, but we live in a pretty remote area, and even the Costco is 75 miles from us. And my oldest son likes to go in there like once a week or so, or not once a week, about once a month, and stocks up on stuff. And so I just have him get me some Kerrygold butter. Well, my youngest son does too. So usually I have him get me the Kerrygold cheese, and the other one gets me the Kerrygold butter. But anyway, so you want to just put your butter in there. I'm starting with a whole stick. I was about ready to put 2 whole sticks in there, and I know that's too much. You want to cut that in. Usually when I'm making like a pie crust, I just add my fat by feel. And I use a combination of butter and organic palm shortening. I've used a little bit of coconut oil in such things. I prefer for the pie crust the half and half combination of the butter and the palm shortening. But for your turnovers, the traditional way to make it is with just butter. No other kind of fat. Now, you want to break this up. This is very, very similar to making pie crust. I got to turn the raspberries down here. You want to make sure you break it up as small as possible. And this is the way I typically do it. Once I got it kind of cut in with a fork, when I was a teenager, I started making pies at a very young age because my mom didn't make pies, and pies I liked better than cake. And so I learned right away, at a very young age, how to make pies. And she had a pastry cutter, and I used it because I followed directions back then. And when I moved out of the house, I just never bothered to buy a pastry cutter. I just made do with what I had, and I found I could do a lot better job just doing it this way. Kind of breaking up the pieces with my fingers and rolling it in my hands. I'll roll it on the back of my hands because I can have a better feel. Because your back of your hands is more sensitive. And so it gives me a better feel sometimes of where that's at. And then I go back to rolling it I'm just getting it as fine as possible. This is the key to getting a good flaky crust and a good flaky, sorry, I keep forgetting what I'm talking about here. Turnover. All right, so that's pretty good. That's broken up real fine. Okay, now I'm gonna have to get some ice water, which I forgot to have prepared since I just sort of did this spur of the moment. So I'm not probably gonna get pie crust or turnover dough all over the camera, but I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna get my ice water and then get back to work on this. All right, so there's my ice water. And again, I use, anytime water's being used for something we're going to drink or eat, I always use our filtered rainwater. Even the ice cubes are made from filtered rainwater. And I keep a 1 gallon glass jug of filtered rainwater in the fridge, so I always have some very cold water, and then I have several gallons I keep in the closet for whatever else, for filling the ice trays, for making coffee, that kind of stuff, tea. So anyway, you pour your ice water in slowly, or a little bit at a time, mixing it in there well, keeping it all broke up like that. You see how that is? I'm not squishing it all together yet into a dough. I want to keep breaking it up with a fork until it gets to the point that the whole thing just wants to start to clump together. At least I think this is the way you make turnovers. I don't think I made them turnovers last year. And usually I only do this once a year for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's because it's so I can have that one little special treat that I make him. But I have a lot of other things that I bake. And I make a lot of pies. Not as much as I used to. There's a lot of the stuff I don't do as much as I used to because we've cut way back on carbs and sugar. So that's another reason why I don't do this stuff as much as I used as often, because like making homemade donuts and all that, because I found that the healthiest way is to cut out as much carbs as possible and eat lots of have a high fat diet, as long as it's healthy fats, the right kind of fats, the natural fats, not the vegetable oils and the corn oils or the Crisco. Crisco's terrible. If you still have Crisco, use it for candles. Use it for soap making. Don't use it to eat with. So anyway, now that it's started to clump together, it's at a good consistency for starting to roll out. Now, for the rest of this, instead of using my hand ground flour, I'm just going to use organic, unbleached white flour for rolling out. I prefer using this better for rolling it out. And again, it's organic. All right, so love this marble rolling pin. My favorite rolling pin of all time. Got it in town there, in the big town that's 60 miles away from us. On those rare visits there. We live in a small town that's like I said, it's pretty remote. We do have a really good grocery store here. I mean, and it's a great store for such a small town. It has everything. I love it there. Almost everything. I still find that, there's things I have to get at Amazon or have the boys pick up for me at Costco, but we do good. Anyway, so you want to roll your dough into somewhat of a rectangle. I need a little more flour because I'm sticking here. I'm not even looking to see if the screen is pointing in the right place. Okay, good. Got to flip that over so I could see if it was getting all this in here. Looks like it's the right angle. Okay, so now that you've got it about like this, about that size, what is that, about 18 by 12-ish? That's kind of what you're looking for. You're going to take your other stick of butter that should be softened, or, at room temperature, which is definitely easier to do in the summertime. Though today we're having a suddenly very cool, damp day. Again, weirdest summer ever, even for our very wet area. Usually this time of the year is very dry. But anyway, you spread your butter. I'm going to use some of this. I'm going to try to spread it as thin as possible. In fact, it would be easier if it was just a little bit softer. And what you're going to do is you're going to cover 2/3 of this dough with your butter. I think I would have been better with just a regular butter knife, which is normally what I use. For some reason, I was thinking the silicone spatula would be easier, but it's not. A table knife, anyway. Okay, yeah, this is what I'm used to using for this. I think I'll be able to spread it just a little bit thinner. I want it nice and thin. This layer of butter, so as you can see, I'm sure you figured out by now, if you've ever made pies, that the turnovers, the dough, the crust, has lots more fat in it than your pie crust. But that's what makes it so good, is all this wonderful butter. And you know what? I don't have to feel guilty about it anymore, because finding out that the high fat, low carb diet we've just been a lot healthier on it. I have an easier time maintaining my weight on this. I like it better. It's a little bit hard cutting back on the sugar. Not that it was huge. Not that I ate a lot of sugar, but you know, we all get addicted to sugar somewhere along the way. And carbohydrates in general. Everybody has some sort of addiction to carbohydrates, whether it be through breads, noodles, rice, or just sugar. And I believe that's probably the #1 reason why we have so many health issues. One of them. That and the antibiotics in our food and water, or that we're taking because we go to the doctor and they want to prescribe us antibiotics for every tiny little thing that shouldn't take antibiotics. And God created our bodies intelligent, and they really can heal themselves if we feed it right. You got to feed our bodies right, and when we feed it right, it'll heal itself. That's why we were able to get off thyroid medication that we'd been on for 15 years. I tell you, it was a struggle for me because I just decided to just quit. I did wean myself off, but I still had a lot to learn about my body and how it worked and what it needed. And so I had a little more, it was harder, even though Pat was on a higher dose of thyroid, what was it called? Whatever. You've probably heard of it because a lot of you probably have been on it or are on it. Anyway, we've been off it for about 4 years, so. But I went through a very difficult transitional period as my body had to relearn how to make its own thyroid, which, yes, it can do. And also, I think it would have gone easier had I known all I know now about how the body works and what it needs. So I'm turning this whole, making this raspberry turnover thing into a health talk, but it might be I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone this way. And I will be talking a lot more about my journey into becoming pharma free. We don't take any kind of pharmaceuticals. We don't take any over-the-counter drugs. We don't take any prescription drugs. Now, back to the turnovers here for a minute. As far as talking goes, you see I'm going to go ahead and spread another layer of flour. You do this about 3 times with the butter. The more times the better, because that, the more you can roll it out and then spread the butter thinly. A lot of people might just do this twice. I try to do it 3 or 4 times. But you're going to use that whole stick of butter. This is what gives you those flaky layers on your turnovers. So when this is done, what I need to do, and this is the only, this is a little bit time consuming. Got a little too much of time there. But why you really should set aside a couple of days for the turnovers isn't that it takes 2 whole days to prepare the turnovers. It's that you need to really make the dough a day in advance and then chill it for several hours, even as much as 24. But I really wanted to get these done today, and my day has just been flying by with so much going on. But yeah, I may still just wait till tomorrow to finish these, but at least I'll have the dough will be made up and the filling will be made up, which is, I believe it's about done right now. It's just cooking on a very low heat, and I'll show you that here in a minute. The tapioca starch obviously is to thicken it. And then as far as your sugar content, I would go by taste. I still have to taste this and see how sweet it is, because I don't want it too sweet. Trying to keep us as sugar-free as possible, but my husband does deserve a treat. He works so hard. Fixing things I break, making things I ask for, and I really try not to ask for much. But we're on the same wavelength, and a lot of times he just knows. He knows what I want and what I need, and he spoils me. Eventually I'll show you the lower cabinets. He built the lower cabinets. He still has yet to get to the upper cabinets. These really dark upper cabinets that you've already seen quite a bit of in my video. Those are the cabinets that came with this house. This house was built in '65. But he has built by hand himself all the lower cabinets, and they're beautiful. I love them. It's got a combination of woods, cedar, walnut, and let's see, walnut framing, cedar on the doors, and I can't, pine or fir for the main cabinet itself. Okay, so this will be the last layer I do. And while I'm rolling this out, excuse me, I got a little bit of a frog in my throat. I want to talk a little bit more about the health thing, and though honestly now I've already forgotten what else I was going to say about that. But I'm going to reiterate the whole idea that I honestly believe everyone can become drug-free. You just have to know what your body needs. And for all of us, we all need something just a little bit different because we're all unique. But for the most part, I bet there's a lot of stuff that we could all do that was pretty much the same, that we would find we did best off. Now, some people find themselves healthiest on a vegan or vegetarian diet, and that's fine. I've tried both. In my early 20s, I did the vegetarian thing. And I did it for, it was either 8 months to a year, somewhere in there. And the first 6 months, I felt great. Then at about month 6, I started having fainting spells. It was kind of bizarre. And now I can look back and say, well, yeah, I was single at the time and I didn't cook, it was just me. I mean, I cooked a little bit, but it was just for me, so I'm not going to get all fancy schmancy. So I ended up eating a lot of the same stuff over and over, just to keep it simple. So I went back to eating meat and dairy, or I was already eating dairy, but went back to eating meat and I felt better. Let me put this in the fridge, and I'll come back and finish what I was saying when I get and show you the raspberry. Actually, I just turned this back on because I remembered I need to show you what you do with this. What you want to, so I hate using plastic. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and use it. I do have waxed fabric for wrapping things in, but I am going to go ahead and use plastic for this. You want to wrap your dough up. You see I have it folded up all nice. It doesn't have to be tight. And then you're going to stick it in the fridge and let it chill. Now, since I'm in a time crunch, I'm going to stick it in the freezer, and I'm going to do that for about an hour and see if that's set up enough. Because you do want to keep it cold when you're working with it. Now, coming back here to the raspberry mix here. It's getting pretty thick. I'm going to go ahead and let it cook for a little bit longer. So, it's good and thick, and then I'll chill this as well. In my early 40s, I was on the thyroid medication at the time, and I lost a whole bunch of weight, got very skinny. I was wearing and this is not good, even though I'm only 5 foot. A good size in dress for me is like 4. If I'm wearing a size 4 to 6 in there, because of my shape, my Italian shape, that's a good size for me. I went through this phase where I felt like I had to be real skinny. I got caught up into what society said I should be. And I literally got down to a size 0. With someone who has Italian hips, a size 0 in jeans, that's ridiculous. That's too skinny. And yes, I starved myself to get there, but I didn't want to admit that to anyone. Especially since I was teaching ballet. I didn't want my students to know that I did that because I didn't want them to do that. So yeah, I didn't want to be a bad example. I knew it was wrong. Well, as a result, my health started going downhill because that was too hard on my body. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to try going vegan. Vegan's going to be a good thing. A lot of people are doing the vegan thing, seems to be working for them. Well, yeah, I did the vegan thing and I felt great for 6 months, just like when I did the vegetarian thing, right? When I hit the 6-month mark, and I was very careful to make sure I was getting all the protein I needed through soy products and this and that. And of course, as most of you that are following probably already know, soy is horrible. Nobody should eat, it's not even people food. Nobody should be consuming soy in any way, shape, or form. So my health started going downhill again. I started putting on weight again, and it's been a constant battle. And eventually I'll go on more about, this is just kind of a start to the story about how I got off the thyroid medication. And I'm going to share the rest of that in other videos. I didn't actually mean to go there today, but I did, so there I am. And that was talking about the diets. So with those 2 times in mind, knowing I was doing the best I could to eat right, even the second time through, and it wasn't right. It wasn't what my body needed, that's for darn sure. And in the end, this past year, what I discovered, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a ketogenic diet. I'd never heard of it. I just discovered on my own by increasing my fat intake with the butter, grass-fed butters in particular, the coconut oil, the avocado, and cutting way back on carbohydrates, even limiting the amount of fruit. I quit all sugar. At that time, I totally quit all sugar for a while, so I could totally detox from it, and didn't even eat fruit for days. And then slowly started introducing fresh fruits back into my diet, and I've been able to maintain my weight, even on the days where I might eat something like this, like the turnover or whatever, and it's just been what's worked for me. And obviously, in the middle, you got a good quantity of vegetables, especially fresh, raw vegetables, and then a limited amount of protein, of meat. We love meat, and I love meat, but I don't feel the need to eat it as much when I have all that good, healthy fat. I find I don't really crave the meat as much, and yet I'm not getting fat. And here's the interesting thing that just takes the cake, no pun intended here, is that let me put the counter back this way and you can see my messy counter. I used to clear up until, maybe a few months ago. Not kidding, I'm 50 years old. And from the time I was in my teens until a few months ago, I would exercise hard every day. 1,000 jumping jacks, a whole bunch of push-ups and sit-ups, plus I was teaching ballet and taekwondo several days a week. And I exercised hard every day, and I wasn't able to stay fit. I was tired all the time. I was exhausted, and I was having a heck of a time taking the weight off, even when I thought that I was eating right and then exercising hard and I wasn't eating junk food. Well, I started thinking about how we do things, how we were created to do things. If I'm grinding flour by hand and I'm sewing, I'm doing a lot of sewing, and I sew on a treadle machine and I sew fast, I don't go slow. And when I crochet, I stand up and I'm hauling water and I'm gardening. And I started going, you know, I bet there's no need for me to continue to keep doing all these extra exercises. In the Bible, they didn't do that. They just worked hard. They didn't need to go out and do push-ups and sit-ups and pay a bunch of money for a gym membership. I mean, what a waste. So I stopped doing all, I'm not teaching any classes anymore, at least not for now. And I stopped doing the daily jumping jacks and all this other stuff. And I feel better. I'm more energetic, and the weight has stayed off, and it came off easier and has stayed off without pushing myself so hard. Now, isn't that interesting? I think a lot of it comes back to, how did they do things 100 years ago, 200 years ago? How did they do things in the Bible? What did people do to stay fit? They didn't have to think about fitness. They just worked hard. They did this stuff. Instead of buying pre-made stuff, instead of buying pre-made clothes and all that, they just did it themselves. And they burned the calories and used their muscles the way they were intended, the way our bodies were built to work. And so they didn't have to have gym memberships. They would have laughed in your face for having a gym membership and said, why? And I finally figured that out. And you know what? I love it. And since cutting out those exercises, I have a lot more time in my day to do stuff like what I'm doing now, the videos I've been putting off for years that people have been asking me to do. Now I have more time to do it because I don't have to go in there and do my 1,000 jumping jacks and my however many sit-ups and push-ups it is I used to do. And it's great. So it's the natural way of life. It's the way we're supposed to be. So anyway, I'll stop rambling and preaching for now, and I will finish up the process here, getting this stuff chilling, and we'll come back when this is ready to roll out and start actually making turnovers out of it, which will be a while, but for you, it should only be a few seconds. Anyway, see you in a bit. Now that I let the dough chill for an hour in the freezer, which this really isn't the right way to do it. Again, as I said earlier, the best way to do it is put it in the refrigerator for at least 8 hours. I know it's a long time, but since I'm having a time crunch, I'm doing 8 hours. And what I'm going to do too is I'm going to take the rest of this dough. You see I divided it up into, actually I'll finish dividing it up into 4 parts. This is actually how you do this once it's fully chilled, is you divide it up into 4 parts, and you only work with 1/4 of it at a time because it's important that the dough stays very cold. So since I want to have at least one to send in his lunch and then one for him to have for dessert tonight, he won't eat more than that at a time. I'm going to make up 2 turnovers because this whole thing will make 8, just like a pie would. A double crust pie, you have 8. This particular recipe makes 8 turnovers. So I'm going to roll this out. I'm going to make 2 turnovers, and I'm going to bake them in my solar run toaster oven and in my nice cast iron pan that you'll see in a moment. These will go back in the refrigerator. I'm not going to put it back in the freezer now. There's no point in that. And then I'll bake 2 more tomorrow, 2 more the next day, 2 more the next day until they're all done. And that way they'll be fresh for him every time because they're best when they're fresh. So let me stick these in the fridge. And I'll start rolling this out. And it will be difficult. And you'll need, see that I have this already floured. And it's going to be a little hard to roll out because it's very firm. But that's how you want it. You want it cold. And you're going to need to roll this into a rectangle, just like you did the when it was one big piece. fairly even rectangle. It's a little harder to do when it's cold like this, but it actually makes it a little easier to shape too, without, you know, it just, you know, you don't want to get too soft, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I want to go back to something I was saying earlier about the vegan vegetarian thing. Please don't be offended if you eat, if that's your diet. If it works for you, then more power to you. Then, you know, kudos. If you've been on that diet for at least 8 months to a year and you feel great and you're not tired all the time, you're not having any health issues, then maybe that's what you need. However, if you're having gut issues and some other problems, adrenal issues, the vegan vegetarian diet may not be what you need to be on. You may need to at least introduce some healthy fats like butter. You know, that's not vegan, that's not vegetarian, but you may need to do that. Now you can see I'm cutting this dough in half, and just consider it, okay? I remember when I was doing the vegan thing, and that first 6 months I felt great. I thought I wanted to be a vegan for my whole life, and again, I didn't choose to be a vegan because I had issues with, you know, because I thought it was wrong to eat animal. You know, God gave us certain animals to eat, and I know there's some different schools of thought in the old law and not eating pork and all that, and though I don't, you know, I believe in the new covenant too. I do think that people really should be reconsider eating pork. I do think there's a reason why God wanted us to stay away from that kind of meat. So just consider it. However, as long as you're getting a good healthy fat, and I think it should be animal fat, at least some of it, even if it's butter, but beef tallow, you know, or beef fat, it's really excellent if it's coming from a grass-fed cow. Which, by the way, I'm so excited, we're going to have another side of beef coming from locally raised grass-fed cow. This is actually going to be a cow. I think the last one was a steer. Okay, where is my little thingamabobber? What do I call it? Here's the big one. What is this one? Oh yeah, I was using it for the tomatoes earlier. I'm just spreading my fat around in here. I love this cast iron pan. This is not a Lodge. I'd never seen this shape. What is the brand name of this? This is Old Mountain. Really like it. Found it on Amazon. So anyway, I'm going to grab my raspberry turnover mix. And that's going to go, obviously, into the center. Sorry, I'm not better prepared here. So it's probably still a little runnier than I would like. It could be chilled a little bit more, but I'm going to go ahead and take a chance and put that in there. I've done this before with it this runny. You just got to work a little faster. So squish that down real good. I actually made this rather large. I had some water here that I also meant to do. See, I can't talk about stuff and then try to do something the right way because I'm not focused on enough on what I'm doing here. Anyway, you fold that over. It's best to wet it down a little bit with some water, the edges. Fold it over, take a fork, and press your edges. And that will help hold that together and hold all the goodies on the inside. And then you're going to take, good grief, I'm terrible, I have all my stuff ready. You're going to take a little knife and you want to make some vent holes. That will help keep the filling from leaking out everywhere. It'll help. It won't be totally perfect. Then I'm going to take this and stick it in the pan. And yes, I made this quite large. But this pan is perfect size for baking 2 turnovers at a time. I like to use this as a bread pan too. I have cast iron bread pans, like your standard bread pans. But sometimes I'll make this bigger loaf that's too big for your standard bread pan. And I bake it in that and I love it. It's just great. I'm gonna make this one not roll it out so much. I'm gonna pay attention more to what I'm doing here. That will help. So this size here is actually better. I guess I thought I was making a pie or something. Rolling it out as thin as I was. Okay, a little more filling in here. That's about what you want. You know, it's just, again, I just do things. I don't even follow recipes anymore. I just, well, I'm not saying I never do. If it's something I've never ever made or never heard, you know, heard of it and thought, well, what is that? And then I go look up a recipe, and then from there I kind of usually still end up figuring out my own way to do something. So the recipe can be mine, not somebody else's. Anyway, so I'm pressing that down. Still too big, but whatever. Alright, a couple of vent holes. And then I'm gonna bake these. Oh shoot, now I gotta remember how long I bake them. I know you wanted it about 400. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on. And let me move this over here so you can see the toaster oven. So I'm going to set this in a toaster oven, and I believe it's 25 minutes. See, I don't think I've made them in 2 years, and I'm just trying to do this by memory. If this fails, I may or may not put this video up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it at 20 minutes, just in case I'm wrong. And then when those come out, I'll show you how they look. Either way, I'm still probably going to put in a picture of like a plate full of turnovers where I did all of them at once, and so you can see what the finished product looks like. And anyway, so there you go. I'll be back after a bit. The turnovers are done, and I was right. It was 25 minutes. So it was a good guess. I checked it at 20, and it just needed to brown a little bit more. So I'm going to carefully lift these out of the pan and set them on the plate. And of course tomorrow, like I said, I'll bake another 2 and then another 2. A little harder to get it out of this pan than off of the cookie sheet, but I really wanted to try cooking this in the baking these in the cast iron because I love cast iron. Now my baking sheets are stoneware, which is also a very nice thing to cook with. But there you have it. So there are my, gotta turn this again. There are 2 of the 8 raspberry turnovers for my husband. So one for him to have for dessert tonight and one to stick in his lunch. And yeah, that's how you make raspberry turnovers on the fly. No, not following a recipe. You can do this with any fruit. It doesn't have to be raspberry. It could be blackberry. It could be apple. Whatever spices and stuff you want to add in there. Raspberry is just my husband's favorite, and actually mine too. But these will be for him. I won't be eating these. And yeah, take my health rant however you want. You know, how you eat and how you choose to take care of yourself is a matter of choice. I try to get information out there that I've learned in my lifetime because really it has been a lifetime of trying to study health and all this stuff and taking good care of yourself. And it's been really the last 10 that I've learned the most. And I like to share with people what I've learned. And again, I'll be making more specific videos on how to become pharmaceutical free down the road. And there'll probably be a series, and I'll put it up as a playlist. So there are your raspberry turnovers. It's really a pretty simple process, just a little time consuming in the chilling and all that and the rolling out. But hey, you know, not bad. And gosh, for some reason I'm having a hard time figuring out how to end this video. So I'll just say thanks for watching, and I'll shut up now. Bye.